Yeah. Hello, wildlifers. Welcome back. Hope you are all doing fine. We, members of Rotary Fellowship of Wildlifers for Conservation, share a common interest that is wildlife and its conservation, willing to work with the 119-year-old organization Rotary towards building a future in which people and nature thrive. So, to share a few notes about our fellowship group, we are a group of around 795 interested individuals, Rotractors, Rotarians, who have globally united around a common interest with the primary purpose to network and further friendship. So, although our group activities are conducted independent of Rotary International, they are all in harmony with the Rotary policies. Our purpose is to create awareness about importance of wildlife to promote lasting friendships outside one's own club, district, and country, and to promote locally, regionally, and globally that conservation of living resources are important to humans and future generations to enjoy our natural world and the incredible species that live within it. Today, we have invited members of different Rotary clubs from different parts of the globe and friends of Rotary for this meeting. A hearty and a warm welcome to each one of you. And on behalf of wildlifers, I also extend a very warm welcome to our speaker, Ms. Jayanti Kalam. Uh, Jayanti Kalam is currently at the forefront of urban wildlife rehabilitation in India as the co-founder and executive director of the Avian and Reptile Rehabilitation Center, ARRC. You must all, I think most of us are familiar with the name ARRC in Bangalore. Her organization plays a critical role in rescuing, rehabilitating, and releasing injured and displaced urban wildlife with a focus on birds and reptiles affected by urbanization. Since its inception in 2016, ERRC has treated over 34,000 wildlife cases, 34,000 wildlife cases, addressing a growing need for wildlife rescue in increasingly urbanized areas. The center also runs educational programs to raise public awareness about wildlife conservation and reducing human-wildlife conflicts in urban ecosystem. Jayanti is passionate about protecting habitats and fostering sustainable practices within urban landscapes. And one additional thing I also want to say, Jayanti has seen Oriental dwarf kingfisher in Bangalore. I think she's the only person whom I have come across who has seen the ODKF in Bangalore. Yeah, over to you, Jayanti.
Thank you, Sanjay. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Let me see. Is my screen shared, Sanjay? My presentation?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Okay.
Yes, we can see. Thank you.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to dive into this. Today's topic would be coexistence in a concrete jungle. Coexistence is a topic that many people are talking about now. All conservationists are concerned about this, about coexistence. But what is unique in Bangalore is, I mean, many people don't know the amount of wildlife that is there in Bangalore, but there are a lot of them, which we will go into some of these details as we go through the presentation. So as Sanjay introduced us, we at ARRC, we are basically conservationists at heart, and we wanted to spread this message of coexistence. And the way we chose to do this is one animal at a time, because a lot of people, when they find these animals, they care about them. But then if they don't know what to do, that can become either a negative interaction or a neutral interaction. But what we want to focus on is every person, when they find an animal in their own neighborhoods, convert that into a positive interaction and thereby facilitating and spreading the message of coexistence. So the core of our work is, we rescue, we rehabilitate animals, and then finally we release these animals. But the underlying mission for our organization is to spread the message of coexistence through this. ARRC operates 2 centers in Bangalore. One is in the city, so that we can reach the rescues faster. But we also have a bigger center, little outskirts of Bangalore near Rajankunte. So it's well equipped with surgeries, with rehabilitation teams, with the rescue teams and all the enclosures. But I would say that my team most passionate there about is resolving this human-wildlife conflict mitigation in the urban settings. So since inception 2016, as you can see here, this is how, we started with about 764 animals a year. And look at the growth, like in 2021, during the peak of COVID, actually, there was a slight spike, and then 2022 reduced, but then it continues to grow. And it's already 10 months now. This year, we expect 7,800 plus animals to be rescued by the end of the year. And if you see the species count also, it's like growing. Again, just tells us the number of animals and the diversity of these animals that are getting into either a conflict situation or a distressed situation right here in Bangalore. So we focused on our urban wildlife. The focus on urban wildlife is definitely increasing. I think you hear this a lot more now. About 10 years ago when we really started this, if you're a conservationist or if you are a wildlifer, mostly you're interested in the megafauna and the charismatic animals. But now there is a lot more focus that is increasing onto the urban wildlife, primarily because there are a lot more people living in urban. These are human-dominated landscapes, and as per one study, 2/3 of the human population will be living in urban areas. And inevitable, the interactions as the urban landscapes are increasing and the density of the people in these urban landscapes is increasing, it is inevitable that people do come across wildlife. And but they also make for interesting group of animals, because just like how we are adapting, they are also adapting, and they are adapting very fast, in fact, to be able to survive alongside us. So what we typically notice in these concrete jungles, while there is lower biodiversity, the species variety, but there is higher density of these animals. Urban areas are prime example of this human-induced rapid environment change, which is happening everywhere, but you can see the impact of this more clearly in urban areas. So what's happening with this rapidly induced environment change by humans, our species are having to be forced to either adapt. They have choice either to adapt or perish. And we kind of see this more in the urban areas. So some of the changes that are happening in Bangalore because of this urbanization, and the wildlife is adapting, their phenotypic traits are changing. Some of the things we notice is like higher song pitches, just to be able to be heard, to be able to make their presence felt. There is a study that has noticed that birds in urban areas now have higher song pitches than their counterparts in the rural areas. Similarly, one of the other things we see is increased nocturnality. I'm sure many people might have observed kites and other animals active through the night because of the street lights that are there, and because of the insects and other things that come to these street lights. It's not just strictly the nocturnal animals that are going for them. Sometimes you observe that these the black kites and other animals also also extend their period of activity, thus increasing the nocturnality for them. Similarly, there is changes in cognitive and problem-solving abilities. And there are dietary changes. Everybody recognizes, everybody knows sparrows disappearing from Bangalore. While some species, the specialist species, are decreasing, the generalist species like black kites are increasing in number, crows, and some few other animals. So this is a graph of different reasons why animals come to us. One of which is the topmost reason is manja, of course, electrocution, glue trap, and various other things. So just have some pictures here to put a face to these animals. So this is a black kite that is stuck in a manja victim. This is actually from Puttanhalli Lake, I think, the darter. You see a mask. I mean, we had several cases that come at a point of time. No, I don't think it's Puttanhalli Lake. It's actually, what's the lake in Kormangla side? Sal Lake, Salkere. Salkere. This is from Salkere. So a lot of darters over a period of time are getting reported either stuck with a debris or stuck with a simple mask. And all that is a mask. And since the way they go for it, the mask just obstructs them. They're not able to open it. They're not able to get rid of it. They fly with that. And over a period of time, they die of starvation. So this is just an example of how our presence, and I know Saul Carey is very popular with a lot of wildlife photographers and things like that, but increased human presence without a proper management system over there results in fact, negative interactions with the wildlife. This is a recent one. I mean, the orange-headed thrush, migratory bird again. Very few we actually notice in Bangalore, but this bird, just before Diwali, somebody found the bird and they handled the bird. And in fact, what you see over here, the feathers are because of the stress that the bird went through when it was handled, and it was handled incorrectly. There is a cuckoo here that was a collision victim. Is here you see the bulbuls. This is also an interesting story that somebody was using a glue trap to get the rodents. But this young just fledged bulbul went and sat on the glue trap and got stuck there. And then the mother bulbul, seeing that, wanted to go and coax the baby to come out of it, and she also got stuck. So now we ended up with 2 rescues. Over here, okay, we all, so this, I don't know which carry it is, but other thing is the ghost nets also have their impact on it. This is a fishing net entanglement for a cormorant and then a snake. So these are, I mean, as you can see, basically we rescue, and most of our rescues because of human-induced causes, basically. And what are the different types of conflict scenarios? Just a conflict scenario that we see when people report to us is sometimes people notice wildlife inside or around hound. Somebody actually noticed a monitor lizard, quite a big one actually, on their compound wall. They freaked out and they call us. Or this is an example of someone having a scops, or this is actually a clothes shop, small-time garment shop. They have noticed it in their shop and then called us. A peephole inside a house. And this is a snake where their dog and the snake, they got alerted because of the dog barking. And that is how we get these calls. So people call because they think sometimes the wildlife needs assistance. And sometimes they're worried about property damage, or they perceive them as a threat to their own safety as well, and health also. Bats are a prime example where people get very worried if a bat roosts anywhere close to them. So no matter what, the relocation of wildlife when conflict arises is not a solution. So we never practice this unless it is absolutely necessary or there is a good reason. Because again, a lot of studies show this, that if you just relocate wildlife, it's not only unsustainable because something else will move in there, but it is also worse or fatal for the animals. We all know this, I guess. Why are wildlife interactions increasing? We don't have to go through this. But the point we want to make here is, we think if we are not able to achieve coexistence in the urban settings compared to the forest fringe areas and other areas where the problems are even more severe, then there is no hope for places like that. So we work with this belief that coexistence should be easier to achieve in urban settings. And the strategies that we develop here, while they don't apply one-to-one because the context is very different in other areas, but still it is at the end of the day, there are people on the other side, and there is wildlife. And the more we understand about how we can promote this coexistence in a positive way for all the stakeholders, the better off we will be, and the same strategies can be used in different landscapes too. Again, the coexistence depends upon how we perceive these things. Is it a nuisance or is it a neighbor? I mean, of course, if you see, you could be, actually, this is sent by somebody who constantly reports animals to us, the picture on the left, but they got worried suddenly when they saw this macaque in their balcony, rummaging through their fridge and eating a mango. So this is the kind of situation. The perceptions are very important. Where it's not just we cannot classify people as whether you like and whether they like wildlife or they don't. I mean, it depends. I mean, based on how their interactions and how their personal experiences with these interactions are. So what we try to do while rescuing these animals, because we have access to the community, people call us. We treat it like a helpline, a hotline rather. They call with several different problems, and we try to understand the problem and, if possible, try to mitigate the issue if it is a kind of a conflict scenario. But if necessary, only then spring into the rescuing of the animal. And I would say at least 25% of the calls that come to us don't end up in rescues. They end up in just counseling and explaining the situation to the caller. So with coexistence, we all want this to happen, more coexistence to happen with urban wildlife. It's important to acknowledge that it's a shared urban space. I mean, it's undeniable that people are the dominant inhabitants of this space, and we just cannot take that away, and then people, many of them are scared, many of them are indifferent, some of them care very much. So we have all sorts of people, but what we have to acknowledge with coexistence is that cities are shared spaces, and it involves respecting the needs of everyone, humans and wild animals included, and adapt our behavior accordingly. And it's not just about avoiding the conflict, but it is also promoting the harmony between different species. So, but what are the factors that influence this kind of coexistence? Some factors influence it positively, some factors influence it negatively. Through our work, this is what we have understood. When people think that a conflict can be mitigated easily, the coexistence factor raises. Of course, if they have positive attitude towards wildlife, again, coexistence is higher. If they trust in the wildlife agencies, for example, if they trust us as a rescue center, if they trust that we understand what they are going through and we will come up with an amicable resolution, then obviously they're going to listen more and coexist and be okay with the coexisting. Also, if they think they are empowered themselves in resolving these conflict scenarios, if they think that they know how to do this, then they are more willing to coexist. Similarly, there are some factors that negatively influence this coexistence. If they perceive risk, bats as an example, even though they are not found so frequently, but the risk perception is very high with bats. So then the coexistence factor goes down. Also perceived effort to coexist, like how long should they coexist? What is the inconvenience of it? The smell, the poop and things like that, or the cost to coexist. If they have to do something, alter their space to be able to keep themselves safe, then the coexistence factor will go down. Similarly, frequency of conflict occurrence. If it's a regular thing, like many people call us about like a kite charging on them because when they go up on their terrace or something, or balcony or terrace, it's a nest kind of a scenario. But if that is too frequency increases, then again the coexistence factor goes down. If there is a zoonotic potential, then it's out of the window. Obviously, these are the factors that impact, but underlying all this is the socio-demographic and cultural characteristics that dictate, that influence these things, like if people are more positive or more negative towards these interactions. So some of the strategies we use here, first and foremost, is empathize. I mean, the person who is very easy to say you're supposed to do this, or I know wildlife also have rights. I mean, you cannot disturb. I mean, we don't use that negative tone. We first try to empathize with the person. First and foremost, when they're calling you for help. They have an issue, they're calling you for help. The first step is to reassure and stay connected with them. Just don't say, oh, okay, if somebody reported, as I was saying, the kite scenario where a kite is attacking them, we try to ask them, give it time, it won't happen, maybe do something. But it's our responsibility. Once it is reported, it's our responsibility to stay connected with them and make sure that it has been resolved satisfactorily. So this empathy goes a long, long way, is what we have found out. Then normalize. I mean, when they encounter these things, don't make it like, oh my God, like it's a snake that has come. It's normalize this. I mean, explain to them, dispel myths and explain to them what actually happens. Why are these animals found in their neighborhoods? Why are they interacting with them a certain way? Try to explain it from their perspective. So normalize the whole interaction, then educate. Do not preach, but empower. Don't tell them what they should do, but give them the knowledge and the tools so that they can deal with the situation better. And never mislead. Don't ever say that, it's a venomous snake, nothing is going to happen. Cannot mislead at any cost, because you have to, as an agency that is dealing with it, you have to gain trust and be both professional as well as approachable, so that people can call you when they interact, when they encounter these issues, and do not take matters into their own hands. And then finally, the collaborative stewardship. Most of the times, particularly in resident welfare associations, apartment complexes, what we find is there are certain population which is worried about these interactions, whereas there are some people who care about wildlife very much, and they would like to, they can take that extra step of, being the community champ, or being the point contact person for other residents to be able to interact with and make sure that things are resolved. So collaborative stewardship also helps. And in the long run, these lead to, we have noticed this in many cases, that the spaces where we go to and people trust us, that we do we understand, and then we do give amicable solutions. Then people trust us more, and they are willing to coexist more, even with venomous snakes. This we have noticed in our experience, which gives us the hope to go forward. So now I'm going to talk about different types of scenarios we work with for coexistence. Owls is one of the very common ones we get conflicts, but with owls, again, in our experience, we are able to convert most of these owl conflict scenarios into into a coexistence scenario. With owls, there is this, bad omen superstitions associated with it. But these barn owls specifically, other owls also, but barn owls very specifically are extremely adept at nesting into human habitations. Most of the barn owls we rescue, they are coming from some hatch in an apartment complex or some high-rise building. Most of them are like this. So this is one particular case. I mean, just this year also, we have worked with 6 or 7 of this kind of coexistence scenarios. But this example is somebody went away for a vacation and they left their kitchen door open. And the next thing, when they came back after a month or so, they noticed some stench coming from their kitchen cabinets. And they opened and they saw owl chicks just hatched owl chicks. And they called us. They wanted us to initially remove, because obviously they wanted to reuse their kitchen. But this is a scenario where we were able to convince them. And a lot of times people get convinced when they understand that the owl is not encroaching into their space. It is just finding a refuge. It is trying to find a space to raise its family. So when you connect it like that for people, a lot of people are willing to take that extra step and willing to give that time and space because for the owl's family to be raised and move away on its own. So this is our strategy with owls. Like we explain to them, we also tell them, like, how old are the chicks, how long it may take for them to fly away, and if at what point is it okay for them to reclaim the space, because we're not asking them to live with the owls forever. We understand that this is not a desirable situation for them. But after a point, they can let the family be and also reclaim their own space. So that usually works many times. But also we kind of use this also. There are very good laws pertaining to wildlife in India, even though poorly implemented, but the laws are pretty strong on the side of wildlife. So we do explain to them that it's illegal, but it's also not good. You're taking the family away. These chicks won't have a scope. Yes, of course, we can take them back to our center and raise them. We would be happy to, but it will never be the same as the mother raising them. So this usually works in the favor of the owls. And many cases like this, we were able to convert them. But what we do is we just don't tell them this and go away. Then once the case comes to us, it is on the onus is on us to keep monitoring. So we keep going no matter how many times. There were times when we promised to clean the stench over there. We promised to come up with some solution that it does not affect their rest of the living space. So this keeps going on with the monitoring until the owls fledge and move away. And then once we give an okay, there people then go and modify or whatever, close the reasons why they were coming into the space. So this is a good example of. Then there is this coexistence with bats, which is much more critical because bats generally, as I mean, and there is truth to it also. We do not know a lot of diseases that bats have, and there is zoonotic potential with bats. So passing the message of coexistence with bats is a little bit more complicated. There is this example of this bat coming and roosting on somebody's main entrance door. You see the beautiful this entrance door and all that, and the bat started roosting over there, even though it's not entering into their house. I mean, this is not a pretty sight to have a bat and the poop that it leaves every day. So this is in cases like this, I mean, these are short-nosed fruit bat, but the other bats that also usually typically roost in people's places are these small pipistrelle bats too. So in cases like this, we use the same thing. We do not take the animal away from there. We try to counsel the caller and ask them to give us time, because if the animal that is roosting over here, if it is thrown away in one night, it won't be able to find a suitable space outside. So we buy time in these cases. I mean, give us some time, give us 3 or 4 days. We will take care of the problem. So we slowly try to use deterring methods. We try to put something so that doesn't make, that's not attractive to the bat to be there anymore. I mean, it's just, you make this place less attractive for a while. So you change the behavior of the bat. So it goes away to some other place which is more suitable for it. Thus, a conflict is resolved. So that is what we have done over a period of time, 3 or 4 days. We first started with something, the bat is still there, then we kind of covered it up, and it got the message and it goes away. And there are different techniques that we use in different kind of scenarios. Also, it depends upon how long, what kind of time we have. Some people may give us like a week or 10 days, then we take it even slower. But some people may not be, may be worried more than that. So it depends upon case-to-case basis, it differs, and we come up with we work with the person there, and we work with our team to come up with a suitable solution in these cases. But we try to use, bats have charming personalities. We have many bats which come to us, which are carrying pups. So pipistrelle bats, short-nosed fruit, and even flying fox. So when they do that, and some of them who are weak end up closer to people's spaces. Like recently, we found a flying fox in somebody's basement, and we got the animal, so nothing is wrong with it. But within 2 days, it delivered a pup. In cases like that, they are just trying, they're not strong enough to be out in the wild. So they're trying to just find a space and stay put for a while. And that is when we get them, people call and worry about them. So this is the situation with the bats. It's a challenge. Still, it's a challenge. We love them, but it's a challenge to give the message of coexistence over there. I mean, the snakes, I'm sure you might have heard of different things. I mean, it very much depends upon good rescue network. Good, ethical, and empathetic rescue network goes a long way in spreading the message of coexistence, at least with non-venomous snakes. With venomous snakes, it's a different issue. But even that, we give a lot of awareness sessions at resident welfare associations, and people usually come to us and say, while I do not completely agree with, coexistence, my fear about the snakes has reduced a little bit. I mean, and that's a win for us. I mean, we're going to take that. It's going to take a long time, and we're not asking everybody to be in love and like allow these animals into their spaces. That's not the message we are giving. But we hope when the fear reduces, they will be looking for more strategies of coexisting with them. So that's then. There are these other kind of animals. I mean, this is this is a different problem. A lot of balcony nesters, the small birds like bulbul, sunbirds, tailor birds, these different people actually care about them. People want, most people who call, I mean, we don't get a call to remove them usually. Exceptions are munias, who also nest in the AC vents. That's when people get into, oh, okay, I have to use my AC. But these kind of animals, people don't have. They love having them. They enjoy watching them. And if something happens, a lot of people insist on, like, that we do something so the family stays put. So the problems what we face over here is the giving the right kind of information, so that the birds over there don't get disturbed. Like one of the things is people say, oh, my dog loves these, my dog is not going to do anything, but or my cat is not going to do anything. But that usually doesn't happen. I mean, it's even though your dog or cat may not do anything, but it's not good for a bird to be to adapt to dogs or cats presence, because it has to save itself from other dogs and cats outside. So usually the issues that we face with this is like, it's not the coexistence. People want to coexist, they love them, but we have to give the right kind of information and guide them to make sure that they are not interfering too much with this process. And then these things, we just 2 days ago, we got this fork-tailed drongo cuckoo, mostly a Diwali victim because its eye has popped out. So there are, this is Diwali also unfortunately coincides with the migratory birds. So pittas are the #1 migratory birds that we get. I mean, just this season, we might have released already released about 8 or 9 pittas. So the #1 reason why these migratory birds come are pollution with glass windows, particularly in the night. So if they see the light, they get disoriented, they fly into the window, which is a clear kind of a thing. And that's when, and they'll hit a window or something, and then they fall down, and sometimes they are stunned. Sometimes the injuries are minor, but sometimes they are severe and life-threatening. So we do get a lot of, in fact, all of these birds have come in dead. I mean, they were reported, and we went there, and the bird is dead. It's unfortunate, but this is the case with migratory birds. So yeah, the problem they have is with the windows and the light pollution. But then this other problem is a lot of people don't know. They try to, I mean, pitta particularly looks so colorful and so beautiful, and people, when they see it, they try to handle it, they try to feed it something, they put it in a cage, which all further distresses them and may end up very badly for them. Sometimes they come in with, like, when you have windows open with ceiling fans running at night, and they come in and they hit a fan and they fall. So this is also another one of the other causes with migratory birds. We get them. So what are some of the remediations over here? We try to raise awareness. We try to ask them to put the lights off, or at least draw your curtains so that it does not reflect through outside. Have mosquito, if your windows have mosquito nets, please don't keep the windows open. Draw those mosquito nets out, and the window screens and decals, which we are going to show, and this works beautifully. So if you have clear glass windows, having a nice design of anything, I mean, there are different designs available. This we have done at our own hospital building. So this works beautiful. When you have this, the reflection from outside will not pass through, and that very well prevents collisions from the glass windows. So that, and then also we try to raise awareness about the importance of keeping the sky dark. So like that, there are different stories of coexistence, but here, in the interest of time, I just chose some of them that may be of interest. But one of the important things we try to tell people is coexistence is absolutely not domestication. When you domesticate a wild animal, you took the wildness out of it, and that's not coexistence anymore. In fact, it's just taking the very essence of that animal away from itself. So this is one of the flip side of increasing affinity that people have towards wildlife, and then they think they know and they like them, so they want to become close to them, and then they end up actually intruding more. So as people become more invested, their intrusion raises. And this is a Shaheen falcon over here. Somebody has kept it in a chicken shop with the goats and started feeding chicken, and it came to us in a very bad shape. In fact, we couldn't even save that animal. And it's such a sad thing wherein the person wanted to help the bird and ended up actually causing harm. And it's very unfortunate when we get these cases, but we get them quite frequently, actually. So, and not just that, in some cases, there is increased chances of zoonotic spread. So in these cases, awareness is the key, even though that's a very difficult message to give, because now how you have to tell the person who is very much invested, cares, and has actually taken a lot of time and energy trying to learn about that animal, feed something to the animal, to say that that is wrong. I mean, so, but again, long-term awareness and telling them the right way to coexist is important in cases like this. Another thing is, I mean, this is also a recent rescue that we have done. It's in somewhere in Dodbalapur. Leopard cub, about 6 months old, has climbed a tree. Something was plowing a field where it was hiding, and immediately it climbed up the tree. Now, in a normal case like this, nothing needs to be done. Nothing needs to be done. The cub would just come down the tree and go its way, or be with its mother, find its mother. But this is not the case, because it was noticed by the villagers, and they already were having problems with the leopard in their area. They already have reported to the forest department to capture the leopard and relocate it. So they were not going to have this, or they were not going to listen to anybody to say that let it be, just move away. And also the curiosity just takes over, and people are not going to go. They want to see the drama unfold whichever way, and that's not a good thing for this cub. I mean, as people, if there are so many people around, it's not going to come down the tree. So this is a situation wherein we were called. And while as a team, we discussed and we said nothing needs to be done here, but we have to be practical in the cases. Like, coexistence should be equitable. What applies to us in an urban setting where we have access to a lot of things, where we do not interact with them day-to-day basis, or our livelihoods are not lost, our property is not lost, and the same message of coexistence cannot be given to people who are probably not as equipped and even not as privileged to be able to coexist with these animals. So what we have done in this case is we got the leopard, the cub down. But the same night, after an hour, once the crowd dispersed, we have released it back 400 meters away from the original location. And while we did not have a visual confirmation of it uniting with its mother, we kind of heard sounds. And from then, I think it's fifth day now, we have been following up with the forest department to see any further reports of this cub over there. So coexistence should be, it should be equitable, fair, and practical and context specific. Otherwise you lose the message gets lost. So in all these things, wildlife rehabilitation centers have a huge role to play. They are connected to the community. They are the place the communities can reach out to, and a well-run wildlife rehabilitation center can play a major role in promoting coexistence in the community. Because they always, in most of the cases, they are the first responders. They're first responders. They win by quickly going to the rescue, by looking professional, and by giving the right information. And by empathizing with the caller, you can prevent the escalation and convert that conflict situation. Also, it gives us opportunity for a lot of data collection and work and use the data to work with policy makers. And we also use this, for example, with manja. We now have a manja hot map. We know where manja is found mostly. We even have each tree where where manja is found. So we used that data and found out, like in Shivaji Nagar and in some places in Austin town, Neela Sandra, this is where manja is found. And when we looked at it, like, why is the case? I mean, Shivaji Nagar is a different situation, but in Austin town and Neela Sandra and all these places, it is because these places have a huge army areas with a lot of old growth trees. But there are also slums right next to it. And manja is typically used by low-income children. And then this manja that they use ends up on these trees and then catches a lot of these animals. So now that we know this information...
Jayanti, sorry to interrupt. There was a question. Somebody wanted to know what manja is.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I assumed everybody knows. I'm sorry about that.
We have a couple of international guests as well. I think they need a little bit of explanation on what manja is.
Sure. So manja, kite flying is a favorite pastime for a lot of people, particularly, like I said, people low income. Other hobbyists also do kite flying, but a lot of low income children groups, kite flying is an easier thing for them to engage in. So there are different types of threads that are used for kite flying. The traditional way is just a cotton thread people use to fly, but now there are more synthetic monofilament, something similar to a fishing line. These threads are used because they're lightweight. They are also actually cheaper, and they are more sharper to cut the kites. Because this kite flying is also kind of a competition. You fly your kite, but you also want to cut the other kites. I don't know what is the technical term called for that, but they do that, kite fighting maybe. So for that, they use this, they call it typically Chinese manja, but it's not manufactured in China. It is very well manufactured right here in Bangalore. It has one of the major manufacturing center. So, but this monofilament synthetic material, which is non-degradable, and which is quite sharp. Actually, once the manja gets cut with whatever reason, this thread is now on the sky, and it normally falls to the ground. But in a space like Bangalore, where there are so many trees, instead of falling to the ground, it will fall on the electric lines or it will fall on these trees. So when it falls in those trees, and because it is not degradable, it just ends up staying there for ages. Like, so the manja that somebody using this thread like 4 years ago, it must still be there on some tree. And what happens is, like, when these birds, particularly during the breeding season, for black kites, it is starting now. This is the breeding season start. And when they have to go and build the nest, they go deeper and deeper into these trees to collect these twigs. And when they do that, they end up getting caught in this thread that is there on the trees. So that is the manja problem. So most of the rescues that we get here in Bangalore, unfortunately, even though Bangalore is not one of the major major kite usage place. It's more popular in the North India. South Indians do it still. But because of the composition of our city, it captures all these threads that are, flying loose on the sky onto the trees. And these become death traps for the birds for, many, many years. Any further questions on that before?
That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So, okay. So the role of Wildlife Rehabilitation Center, like I said in the beginning, what we want to really do is to promote the message of coexistence. And we found in what way we can do that is by responding to each individual animal. So in fact, when we see how well we are doing, it's not important of how many animals we rescue every year, because that is going to keep on going up as the interactions keep increasing. But it's important to see in how many cases are we able to convert a conflict into coexistence? How many people are we able to convert from not using manja into something safer thread? So this is how to measure this. It's a difficult thing, but this is where we should invest more into. So as usual, coexistence, how do we do this? Awareness empowers, but again, if you go for an hour into a school and teach them about the importance of coexisting, it's not going to work. They're already overloaded, these children, with a lot of other things in different directions. Just a 1 hour is not going to influence them. So awareness, what we have realized is it has to be consistent and long-term, and you have to use different approaches to get it. You have to use interactive skits, animated videos to drive the message rather than being one talk about this. So awareness again is empower them, give them tools to coexist so they can do it. I mean, but pay attention to nuances and cultural context. The future scope of this for wildlife rehabilitation centers and coexistence. Wildlife rehabilitation centers are very well equipped to collect a lot of data on local biodiversity. So we know what kind of birds are coming. We know this season if pittas are coming more or they are coming less, or which animals are increasing, which animals are decreasing. So there's a lot of data in it. Even though wildlife rehabilitation centers are overloaded with their core work, which is going to the rescue, getting the animal, treating, rehabilitating, and release, but this is also some in an area that we can focus into. And ultimately, also invest in wildlife friendly urban planning, encourage people to explore more urban wildlife friendly urban designs or park designs, things like that. So this is where we see the future scope. This is a poster we have done to illustrate the interconnectedness of all the Zynga game. If anybody knows, so just it's all interconnected. If you just remove some of the building blocks, the human who is standing over here very precariously is going to fall off. So we try to use messages like this so people can reflect upon it on their own. So yeah, we do a lot of posters of different things, not just about rescuing. It's about life in the leaf litter, how to coexist. On Wild Migratory Day, we talk about how important is it to protect insects to actually protect birds, things like that. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, Jayanti. It was really very informative. I would like to open the forum for questions, and yeah, anybody would like to ask anything, please feel free to put it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. There is a raise hand option. You can raise your hand, unmute, and then ask. I'll just call out the name if anybody wants to raise their hand. So just until somebody asks the question, Jayanti, I just wanted to know if you have come across any slender lorries
Oh yeah.
for rescue. Yeah.
Yes, many times. Actually, every year we get, I mean, this year we did not get babies to raise because we have actually developed a reuniting protocol for slender loris. Before, like, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, every year we used to get at least a couple of them, babies falling out, because the slender loris, if people don't know, that they are arboreal, so they depend upon the interconnectedness of the canopy. So if there is a break in the canopy, or if the young one cannot hang on to the mother, or in cases like that, the young one falls, and this is we ended up raising them. Then we actually worked on it, because it's so disheartening to raise a mammal like that clings on to its mother. It depends so much on the mother's care. So we were thinking about, like, what can we do with this situation, and we actually do quite a lot of reunitings for all types of animals, like birds. We go up and build the nest again, kind of reinforce the nest, things like that. So with slender loris, it's a little bit difficult because they are nocturnal animals. Not much is known, and they're only in small pockets. Like, finding out where they are, you don't have an advantage; they have an advantage over you. So what we have realized is, as we were caring for these lorises, they, at about 3 or 4, they give a call. That call is very different from the normal call that they give at other times. It's like a kind of an alarm call, kind of a thing. Like, it will continuous. It's like kind of a screeching thing, sort of a thing, that they only do at 4 a.m., 4 a.m. ish, in the early mornings. So then we were wondering, what is this? Why is this call so different? And when we think about these animals, what happens is, the mother parks the babies, goes and forages, and collects the baby, and they all roost in a group during the day. So we thought, maybe, could it be that call, that where the baby is giving it out to the mother, just saying where it is? And we tried that. We tried that about a couple of years ago with reuniting. So we had to stay out in the night, and again that call was coming, and then we were able to reunite the slender loris baby with the mother using this technique. So from then, now if we get a baby, we only try to reunite it. We don't try to raise it, which is raising it and then wait to release it, and monitoring them after the release is a nightmare. So this is the technique. So like that, a lot of different understanding of the behaviors of these animals, because these animals are with us, and they also grow up with us, and so we kind of get an opportunity to observe their behaviors throughout their life cycle, which gives us insights into their world, and ultimately helps us, in cases like this, to reunite. But other than babies, we also get slender loris that are electrocuted sometimes, unfortunately. That's not a very good scenario, or sometimes minor fractures also. But whenever possible, we try to, with a minimal time, we try to put them back from where they have come from. In cases where long term, then only we look for alternate space, because for slender loris, survival is not very easy in these remaining pockets.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for that answer, Jayanti. Arun, please go ahead and ask your question. Can you be a little louder, Arun? We can't hear you.
Yeah, hi, Jayanti. Thanks, Sanjay. Okay. Yeah, basically, I particularly have been using your services of your organization quite a few times, at least 6 to 7 times. And
Oh, nice.
once I brought one particular, I can't remember what I brought. I brought one animal to your rescue center, and I was very politely, I was told not to get to the to your center. That is one thing I think maybe you could tell the reason.
Yeah.
And the second thing that is the recent one was that of a white cheek barbet, and you guys are doing a commendable job. What our guys had done in our complex, they had sheared off some of the branches, and
Oh.
and of course then it was all in a place. They had set the branches aside, and
Mhm.
I just went around, and for some reason I heard some chirping sound from the debris, and that's when I pulled out a few logs which had the nests in it, and
Oh,
there are three barbets within the holes, and within a single hole there are three
yeah.
chickens, and your people, they came, they took them, rehabilitated, and they brought them back and released in the same place where they were. This is one thing that personally I'd like to thank you for this.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to answer that, your first question. See, there are two reasons why we And there are multiple reasons why we don't allow people in. One is like you can imagine, like I was saying, like we deal with about 7,800 this year. That is more than 20 new intakes every day on an average. So the place would be like, every intake, like from as soon as the call comes, that's all. I mean, all people have to do is report the animal to us. Then the responsibility shifts completely to us. I mean, even if the caller doesn't call back, we call them back to follow up on what is happening. So to be able to do this with so many different types of species, with their housing requirements, with their treatment mechanisms, checking who is ready for release, making sure that they go back, and it's a lot of intense work. And in this, and we are an NGO and we are a small group of people doing this, and all the focus of everyone, like even if somebody, an official visits also sometimes, I'll tell you honestly, it just distracts the whole team dynamics. You have to attend to that person. You have to show, you have to answer. And we thought that like our team works in like kind of like, it's we are always on alert, each handing over to the other person, things like that. So that kind of dynamic gets disturbed when people come, particularly when people come who has given us animals, or people just casually come to look at this. Can you imagine? Because we are also in the like in the city part, how many people will end up coming? We have to have a separate wing just to be able to guide them through, and also make sure that this does not impact our operation. So we try to explain that this is like a trauma center, this is like an emergency center where the animals, I mean, there is no benefit to the animal with someone coming.
Oh, mama.
So that is one thing that we try to say. The other reason is, the animals itself, they need all the time and space and no disturbance. Like there are animals that some people who are working with us, they have not been in some of the rooms where the animals are. Only on a need basis, there will be an interaction, because wildlife goes through extreme stress when it sees a human being. I mean, they think that it's a predator. They don't understand at all that you're treating them, you're being nice to them. So and stress prolongs the healing period. It reduces the immunity. There are so many other factors. So this is the reason we try to tell people to not come in. But now that we have a longer term care, we keep thinking about it, because it's also an important thing. I mean, people want to see, and by seeing also they can learn something. We keep thinking about it, like how can we do this? When we figure out a way, maybe we can change that, but this is what we do for now.
Perfect. It's very, very understandable here. Thank you so much.
Right. Vikram, please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Jay. So, of course, another big fan. Have known about ARSC for a very long time. Known your members. Have visited your place long back. Stayed away from the wildlife inside, but as part of my work at Conservation India, we had visited you. So given the broader question, this might be a tough one, but to discuss. In general, if you look at urban wildlife, the percentage of the importance of urban wildlife from a overall biodiversity of a country or of a region's perspective, it is relatively lower, right?
Yes.
And it's unfortunate. I mean, cities like Bangalore have destroyed what we had, but it is what it is. But that has also meant that it has reduced the pressure on biodiversity outside of Bangalore, because a lot of people have moved in, and now we see that in rural areas that wildlife is thriving in many places, right? Given that, and because throughout my years in conservation, one thing I've realized is urban conservation attracts a lot more people, because sheer convenience of being, it's around, right? It's right here. It's easier to get people to come and volunteer, come and work with you, come and donate, because they're able to empathize very directly with what they're seeing and all of that. Which, I mean, your work is far greater than all of that. But when we look at that, how do you look at somebody like an ARRC become a platform for broader conservation, right? Beyond urban, like coexistence is important, rescues are extremely important, because we have very few of what is there. But because, for example, a lot of us in our childhood, we got into wildlife starting with a love for wildlife and love for animals, right? There is a lot of misplaced love for animals initially. All animals are the same, but then you start differentiating between domestic and wild, and you learn as you go along. The fact that many of us get involved in snake rescues at a young age, we work with rescuers, all of that brings in a deep sense of love and ownership for biodiversity, which ultimately translates into conservation, right? How do you see somebody like an ARRC become a platform for the next 2-3 generations of conservationists to come and take on the bigger mantle of conservation in the country?
Yeah, a very good question, actually. It's not an easy one, like you said. Yeah, the thing is, I keep thinking about it time and again. And my own take on this is like, yes, we want conservation, we want coexistence, and but underlying all this is a fundamental thing of empathy and compassion. Not just for wildlife, by the way. Wildlife is one type of, it's even for our own humankind,
Yeah.
Empathy and compassion is the fundamental framework on which all these things are built. And in urban areas, everywhere, but in urban areas, you can see with all the pressures that are going on, for an average person to be empathetic and compassionate to anything but himself is not an easy thing. I mean, it's very difficult. So what we, yeah, we are not in fact, before I started this, my idea of my idea was into conservation, land restoration, and other things, and I thought this will lead into something bigger, really, honestly. But it's just doing this and what we are doing, and but doing it consistently, doing it on a day-to-day basis, and I see this as a service to the community more than service to the wildlife. So it's like, like you said, if you're looking at it only at the wildlife and only from the conservation point of view, the value that we are providing is much lower than other things for the same amount of resources that we can put into it. But in a larger sense, this is a service to the community that is happening. And through this, but there are other advantages to this, because of we are spaced in this urban environment. We are getting huge numbers. This is not possible in a different. So we do connect. We do emphasize on this research. For example, disease monitoring can be one of the major things that we can get into. So we are trying to come up with something like we keep meeting people and trying to come up with something where all these animals, the baseline profiles can be made and the diseases can be documented. I mean, we do in-house, but that is very little, but the scope of it is more. That is one way. The other things that I can see about it is like it can also be a platform where you can understand like some of these behaviors. I mean any understanding will only help us help us translate them into other areas more and more. But we also get occasionally called upon, for example, Kokra, you might know. Kokra, there was pelicans that come to Kokra, and they were having an issue where year after year, some of these animals, they're like, in mass deaths kind of a thing. So we were called upon for that. We were working with the researcher over there. We shared our protocols of what is working for us over here. Now, this is one way. And not just that, like recently in Sambar Lake in Rajasthan, there is a case of, breakout of botulism. So, but we know very little about botulism, and we know very little about how to deal with botulism. And if they are dying in hundreds, that's definitely of conservation value. But who develops the protocols for that? You cannot just go in and develop a protocol overnight on something like this. It has to be the consistent work that leads to developing of these protocols. Just like that reuniting protocols. I mean, somebody was mentioning barbet, Arun, I think. And this reuniting of these we have renested the barbets. Where it is different for cavity nesters. So there are a lot of these small researchers, and again, who knows, maybe we are only a 9-year-old organization. We're not even 9-year-old yet. We're going to be 9 by 2024 January. That remains. I mean, that's a thing that we want to be able to get into, contribute more. But how to do it while making sure that what we have already embarked upon, this commitment, is not, because that is also another thing, right? Like you are committed to one cause. You cannot let go of it to go to a bigger cause. You have to figure out a way how to do this and also provide something larger. And for that, like, if we'll see, hope still, fingers crossed.
Yeah. No, I'm not sure. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think what you do is small in any in any measure. You guys
No,
are
no, but this is
spectacular.
this is the thing that we keep thinking about. Like, if anybody, I mean, we are trying to slowly open up a little bit more and open up
Yeah, but
and
that's a very important point what you said. I mean,
yeah.
protocols are very hard to come by in wildlife. It's extension of veterinary science to wildlife is a very tough one, which leads me to, I'll probably take this question from Vijay, in the chat if Vijay wants to ask, or I can just ask this. You established your center. The forest department must have been an active partner. How did you go about it? What was, how did you do the in-house veterinary surgeon? How did you train the frontline rescue personnel? This is a question from Vijay Bharat.
Okay, yeah. Well, doing wildlife rehabilitation in India is not easy. Let me tell you, it's not easy at all. I mean, there are no clear permissions, there are no clear guidelines. A lot of this is still in nascent stage, but still, the legal framework is not very clear on this thing. So persistence is how we got through permissions with the forest department. Just persistence, just doing it, just reporting what we have done, and then they have eventually seen our work. That is the part of the legal side of it. But other than that, there's a good question. There are not enough people who are trained as wildlife rescuers. And even wildlife vets. Wildlife vets a little bit more, but rescuers, though, very few are trained because, like you were saying, people get into it because they're passionate. Passion alone is not enough. It has to be a more professional approach. But for that, there is not enough training. So we have initially, I myself used to go for rescues to understand what it is, understand how these things work and what are the real issues. I still remember in the beginning, when we got a call of a bird stuck, I mean, I would just stare up and look at it and think it's impossible. What are we going to do? I mean, this is just an impossible task to do, but there is no option to leave the bird out there, right? Like, you care for this, like, so then that is where your problem statement is, like, so how are you going to go about it? That's when we started looking at different solutions. People were suggesting drones, people were suggesting laser tags to burn off the manja, this thing. Then we looked into other industries and see, if we are not able to reach the bird, how are people reaching the high rise buildings and doing the window cleaning? That's also a precarious thing. So there are certain tools, like these kind of extendable poles, they call it. So you have to look into different industries to be able to come up with a solution. So finally, our first very carbon fiber pole that goes up to 60 feet, we ordered it from the US. It was such a customs and all, so difficult. Then we ordered a pole from UK. And finally, we figured that by the time somebody has started making these carbon fiber poles that go up to 70 feet for areca nut harvesting. So we kind of went and spoke to them and then used that. Similarly, they also make something for coconut tree harvesting. They make these tools to quickly go up the tree. So we went and spoke to them and got those devices and trained our people. There is a lot of it is hands-on training, and it still goes on. But now that we have some people who are trained on it, they train the new recruiters. But initially, it is a lot of hand-holding, and it continues still. I myself am like, when I got into it, I got into wildlife rehabilitation in 2012, roughly about when I was in the US. And that's where I learned about wildlife rehabilitation. I became a certified wildlife rehabilitator from International Wildlife Rehabilitation Council. And also I do give classes, some courses IWRC conducts internationally. I do give some classes through that. So I used that knowledge and trained my team who is here, I mean, who is better than me in wildlife rehabilitation right now, because the animals themselves and the consistent protocols will teach also. So now we have more knowledge, and not just us. I don't mean just us. In India, this wildlife rehabilitation, particularly urban wildlife rehabilitation, is picking up. There are other groups also who are doing pretty good work in other places in India, and we kind of exchange information. We are all connected. We exchange information. That is how we further ourselves into this field.
Thanks so much for that, Jay. There is one from Hashael. I feel rescue and coexistence are as far apart as north and south. Coexistence is about living alongside my neighbor. Over time, I've learned to coexist with my dog and I have to feed it. But rescue is what happens during an accident or injury. Based on your experience, do you see this as an accurate perception that these are very different from each other?
Uh, yeah, I kind of agree with you. Like rescue is when an animal is in an accident, but with wildlife, what happens is a lot of times people do not know whether it is a rescue scenario or it is a coexistence scenario. They also have to be guided through that. So a lot of times like you end up going to a rescue because people call and said, like, an owl is there and it needs a rescue. All that it needs is probably not a rescue. Another good example I can tell you. A lot of times animals get into living spaces, particularly warehouses. We have several times got calls whether a raptor like a shikra or even a black kite ends up into a or an owl ends up into a warehouse. Or a mall. We got situations where some owl is in the mall, things like that. So in those cases, it is like it's a rescue, but you're not really treating the animal. You have to rescue the animal out of that unnatural situation and release the animal. So there are cases like that also. But overall, yes, I do agree. Coexistence is about being tolerant, whereas a rescue is a different situation where the animal is in trouble.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone else?
Vikram, there was one question from Suchi.
Yes.
I know it's, I mean, I think what Suchi wants to ask is how can apartment communities effectively address stray dog issues? I think what she's trying to ask is maybe the stray dogs which are causing harm to wildlife. That is what she means. So I think so. Considering that she's asking a wildlife related question, I am posing the same to you.
Okay, and this is a hot topic these days, actually.
Yeah.
So, you know, coexistence is doesn't mean that there is a one solution to all. I mean, I cannot honestly tell you what would be the right way to approach a stray dog situation in a given situation, in a given circumstance, without even knowing the entire circumstance. It's a very, very context specific. And when we make like blanket statements, like you're supposed to coexist with animals, that is when, we lose the message. So even in this case, I'm not equipped to answer this question because I do not know what is the circumstance, what is the problem, the extent of the problem. And but how can people address? That's something that I can say. Ultimately, we are in a community. In a community, different people have different perceptions, what is a good life or what is the right way to live, things like that. We have these differences of opinion on many different things. Just with whether it is with dogs or whether it is with wildlife or whether it is what should be a lake be used for, what or a private or a park be used for. There are difference of opinions on these things. I would say when the things as humans what we can do is we can come together, we can agree to make give some room for others and come up with a solution together and agree that as a community that this is how we are going to deal with. That's very specific to that community, whatever the case may be. But we can come to the table, we can hear everybody's opinion and come with the best option that is agreeable to everyone. So that would be the solution in this case. So every resident welfare association or an apartment complex that has a decent number of like 20 plus or 30 plus, I think that there should be some clause or something where whenever they meet, they also discuss about these issues. So their perspective can form, a collective perception about these issues can form, and they will be better equipped to deal with this.
Yeah, thanks for answering that, Jayanti. So I think we have no more questions, but there are a couple of, chat in the chat box. There are a couple of messages appreciating your efforts and thanking you for whatever you are doing, Jayanti. And really, I'm glad that, you came and addressed us all about coexistence and Of course, you are some of the things that you said very beautifully said. Removing fear, that is something very important. That is something that we also need to bear in mind when we talk about conservation, wildlife conservation. Removal of fear is something that we have to bear in mind, and coexistence is not domestication. That is something that we need to really uh, carry it to all our friends. I'm sure each one of us who heard you will do that. Really grateful to you for coming over and addressing us all. And I also thank one and all. Um I see Rotarian Christopher Putok. Um, it's early morning, 4 a.m. for him in Hawaii. So he heads the Rotary Action Group for endangered species. So
Wow.
he is there, for our meeting today. Thank you, Chris. And I'm also happy to know that you are visiting Bangalore. We will definitely have a meeting. We will have a formal get together when you are here. So please do keep in touch. And thank you, each one. Thank you, Subodh. Thank you, Vikram. And thank you, Rashmi, for all the support. Jayanti, once again, on behalf of all the wildlifers, I thank you for this wonderful presentation. And I also wanted to, bring, people in groups, say about 3 or 4 of them together to your rescue center, so that
Yeah.
they get a first-hand experience of what you're doing.
Yeah, please do that. Now that we have another center opened up, which has more space, it may be
Yeah,
feasible to do that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Thanks again. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank
And
you.
have a good night.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much,
Thank
Happy.
you all. Thank you.
Everyone, bye-bye.
Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Good day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you.